All right, welcome back. We are Comp 229, Web Application Development, and it's week 5, part 1 of our video series, and we're going to be talking about Express CRUD today. All right, so again, from a requirements perspective, I'd like to start here. At this point, you should have the stuff that's listed here, plus Mongoose NPM module installed. We're going to need that as we continue what we're doing. Also, from a knowledge perspective, you should have read about the model view controller pattern, I should say actually controller, and as well as understand what full CRUD means from a data store perspective: create, read, update, delete. This video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be extending the bookstore database and allowing us to do full CRUD with it, and that's what we're going to do for this one. This is going to take us most of the time, and it might be a little bit longer than some of the other ones. Let's see how it goes. All right, so this is where we left off. I kind of adjusted some of the columns and stuff just to make this book list a little easier to look at. And the way I did that was in here. So I started off with changing some of these offsets. So I said offset medium 1, column medium 10 to give it more space. And then I used the flex model for each of the table header and table rows. And so what I did was I said, well, each of these ones are going to have 2 columns, and this will have 6 columns internally into the actual in the space of the table itself. So you can have columns nested within other columns, and that's what I've done here. And I'm just letting you take a look at this. So if you wanted to adjust yours to make it look like mine, if you're following along, you can do this now. All right, so far, what we have from a roots perspective is we have all these roots in the index, and we have just one root on the here on the books. All we can do with it right now is we can read. All right, and what we want to try and do after this is have full CRUD, which means we need to be able to update as well as delete, and which is, to me, is always the most challenging piece. So let's take a look at how this is going to work. I'm going to bring this up here. So why is it difficult to do? Why is it difficult to do full CRUD? It's not necessarily difficult. I think that's the wrong thing. I know that I've been asked by many students about that. The challenge is organization, I think, is one of the things that we want to do. We want to be organized. It'll make our job a lot easier when it comes to doing this kind of stuff. And part of what we want to do is start organizing the top level. So again, what I try and do now is we start looking at the structure of our app, and we want to try and break some of this up. I'm going to make a copy of this just like last time, so I'm going to close it down. So again, I'm going to Control-C to stop the app from functioning. Close this down, and what I want to do is I want to make a copy of it for week 5. So copy it and paste. And this way, we have all these preserved. We can always look back if we need to. So that way we have no risk. Again, I would always prefer that we use Git, but in this case we're not going to do that. We're just doing a straight example. Part of this is going to be the opportunity for you to do it on your own, and so that's why we'll share the Git files with you later on. Okay, so here's week 5. Again, I'm just going to pull up VS Code. We'll pull this down, and we'll pull week 5 in here. So now we have a new week. What I want to do here is we're going to do some more reorganization. I talked about this last time. So we have our config, models, and everything else in here. And what I want to do now is hide most of this stuff other than the public folder. I want to hide all this stuff, as an example, inside of a server folder. So first, let's make a server folder. This is part of it. And under server, I want to drag and drop all these piece parts, except for package.json and server.js. All the rest of it, public will stay outside too, but routes will go into the server. So let's move that. Views will go into the server. So we'll move that. All right, so routes and views. we'll move. It makes sense that node modules will stay where it is outside because we may or may not include it. And we'll talk about this a little bit, how to put this in. We could include this as a server for node modules, and then that means our package.json would also be in there, but that can confuse things. So for now, I'm going to leave it on the outside. I'm also going to pull in my models. That's going to go in there. And config. But we're going to keep our public on the outside. And there's a reason for this, because later on when we restructure for Angular, we're still going to have a public folder on the outside, but we're going to have a client and server section. Right now the server is kind of a client and server together. All right, this would break our app the way we've done it, and there's a bunch of things to break our app. One of them is on the inside and one of them is on the outside. So let's first go on the outside. The server is trying to find config app. That's not going to work any longer. We have to go into server and then into config apps, another level down. That's what this is going to be. So that's the first part. So now this is fixed, and now we're going to go on the inside, and we're going to go into app.js, and we're going to try and fix this one. So why? So this root is okay, roots and all this stuff is okay, but now when we get to some of this, we're going to see that some of this is not okay. Example, public, that's not okay. It's going to go up one to the server level and then up another one to public. So this is on the outside. So .. way out there. Same thing with node modules. Node modules is on the outside, so that's going to be way out there. Okay, just from a structure perspective. So that kind of fixes those things right there. We don't have to worry about public or node modules, and that's pretty good, right? And you're going to say, why did we do this? Well, because structure is important, especially from, like I said in the beginning, organization is one of the things that makes MVC as well as CRUD difficult. All right, so let's do nodemon, and we can see that we're good to go. So now we'll test it, which is the next step, and we'll refresh and see if we don't break anything. So looks like we're still pretty good. One thing that we don't really have is a link to our book list, and that's the first thing I want to do. I want to get a link to the book list. So we'll say books will be a link. Let's go there and add that as a link to our nav bar. So again, as I'm going to the nav bar, I'm going to go to views, I'm going to go to partials, I'm going to go to main nav, and we can see here we've got several nav items. One thing we want to do is we want to navigate to our books. So I guess products, server, services, books would be another one. Let's put that kind of on the far right. So I'll make kind of another list item. We're going to be looking for books. Okay, that's what is going to be the link. This will be books. We'll do book-list. That'll be the actual link for it. Book list. So this is books, right? And obviously it might be a good idea for us to include a, let's go to font awesome, maybe find a book that we can use. I believe there is a book. Yeah, but we have books, so maybe something like where there's more than one. I'm just going to take a quick look and see if there's anything that I can use beyond that one book that I saw, which is this one. I still think it's pretty good. So we can grab this book and we can go back to our site, and we want to replace this I tag with that new one I just copied. So it's FA book, which kind of makes it so it's that. So we've got our link, but we won't be able to use it right now until we have a route for this. So again, going back to our index, into our routes, right? We want to be able to look at books and see the book list here, book link, but books would be the list, right? So in fact, we should be able to see this books, right? It's just a matter of getting our links proper. Okay, let's take a look at that. So going back to our roots, if I look at the book root, this is the book root. Now, what's happened is we're looking at a link that is book list. That's the title. But I want to go to that link, and it's going to happen on a nav bar. So is that possible? Of course it is. So if we go back to this, let's take a look, and we'll go back to here and refresh, and let's see what happens. So now we have books, and you can see now that it comes up. Now, here's something. Books itself is never highlighted because this says book list. So we can fix this. So where it says book list, we'll just call this books as the title. The link will be a books list link, but at least, you know, as we refresh, you can see now that that highlights nicely. Books. Now we're still good. So we have that. That's a good link. Another way of getting to it is, as opposed again to us typing it in. So book list, and then we can add the additional configuration. So we've got part of it done. The other part that is important is now we split off into this model view controller framework, which is also very important. So again, under server, I'm going to add a new folder, and we're going to do controllers. There we go. We're not going to do that right now, but what I want to do is in the next video, I'm just framing it right now. I want to take the logic out of the roots and put them into their own section. So this is where we'll have the true MVC framework. Okay. For now, though, we want to kind of add our control there. So again, if I go to our roots, what I want to do here is I want to scaffold out what it's going to look like. So I want to try and pull out just the comment for now. Let's try doing that. So we got a get root for the book list page to show the book list page. We want to get a get root for the add page. Get root for the add page, which will do kind of a create. So this is a create operation. That's what that is. But that is the just displays for displaying the ad page for displaying. So whenever we do a get, we display. Whenever we do a post, and we're going to put that in there. We're going to do a post root for processing the ad page. Right, so we have an ad page, we're going to display it and process it. And we're going to do the same thing for the other pages. We're going to have the edit page, so get for the edit page, and we're going to post for process the edit page. And that's what's happening there. These ones are update operations. Again, just scaffolding this out because this is the stuff we need. These are all the roots. As well as the last one, which is going to be, it's going to just be a get root for logging it, for doing what we have to do for deletion. There is no displaying. You're not going to display the delete page, right? We're just going to a get request to perform the deletion. To perform book deletion. Okay. Let's put deletions. We can use this for other things as well. And this is the delete operation. It's kind of out of order, right? Create, update, and delete. Here's something that we should know, that create and update the pages to display the pages are very similar, right? Whether we're adding or editing, it doesn't really matter. It's using, we could use the same template for this because they're so similar. I mean, we're going to basically have a little form that you fill out, and when you're editing, you want to load that form up with data, right? And when you're adding, you want to have that form be blank. The only difference is the button names at the bottom. So we almost like want a details form, if you will, or an add edit page that does kind of everything together. And we could do that, but I'm going to keep it simple and not do that. So first, let's put in the roots, so the outside roots. And like I said, it's kind of easy. We're going to do a router.get. And on the outside, this is going to look like this. You're going to go to add. And then from there, you're going to have some kind of the control piece, which is a request, response, and next object. And what this is going to do is just simply render the operation. The next piece here is what we're going to have is a post request, and this is going to process the ad page. But again, it's very similar to the get request. There's not much in here except for request, response, and next. So that's kind of the same route. Notice it's the exact same route, but we're actually going to make something new happen with our post request. The edit is slightly different. So again, the edit might look very similar to this. So I'm going to just grab this and put it here. And we can have this as edit, but we need an ID. And the way it works for routing is if you put a colon and the ID, what this is saying is we're going to slap on an ID here. It's going to search for this particular ID from the parameters, and we'll be able to find information from this. And then it's the same thing, except it's going to be a post. So two routes. Now there's another way of doing this where you can do a post and a get and a post in one. I'm not doing it that way. You can do like one route that does both, all right? Because they're so similar. Like you can see that they're the same, right? One just uses get, the other one's post. There's also other kinds of responses and requests, which are things like put and delete. We're not going to use those. We're just going to stick to get and post. And then finally, there is a get request for the deletion. All right, so copy. And down in here, it's going to be delete ID, and whatever the ID is of the object that we're deleting. Okay, so that's kind of the structure of the way we're going. And I think that's a pretty good structure for starting off. And that's going to be the same thing that we do when we set up the control that we're going to have for everything else, whether we're adding a user or we're adding something else. All right, so the next part is we want to go and we need an add page. So again, we're going back to views, and so far we have this thing called book, and this is a book list. That's what this does. And we want a book add or an add page of some kind. So we could do an add, we could do a delete, make them separate. And I think that's okay, right? But it'd be nice if we were organized, because this template belongs to the book template. And I think it's good if we reorganize a little bit to make it nicer. So instead of going to the book template, we'll look inside book, and we'll go into the book, and this will be called a list. Okay, so let's do that. So again, new folder, again, reorganizing with book. And you can see that's inside a book. We want to move book inside a book like this. Yep. And we want to rename this file, rename, to list, book, list, book, add, and so on. We're going to reorganize everything. So then when we go into our book root, it's not going to look in book, but rather it's going to go into views book / list, right? So that's what's going to do this. It's going to do the same thing, except it's going to look in the book folder and in the list .ejs file to do the book list. Okay. Similarly, what we want to do is when we do a render, whenever we do a render, and that's the first part, is we want to do a display. We want to display the ad page by looking at the same thing. So we're going to do the same thing. And there isn't any special code to put in for this one. We're simply just going to res render it. So copy this, go in here. Let's just make sure there's a semicolon here that I forgot to put in from last time. So instead of book list, it's going to look inside of book, and then we could have an add or an edit. Let's put that in there. So let's make an add. Okay, we don't have the code for this yet, but we will. Again, going back to this. So when we look inside, we're looking at book add. That's the actual page that we're doing. And then instead of books, this is going to be add book, right? Right, so we'll just call it add book. There might not be a link for that right now. Okay. And what we want to do is when we need a title, and we don't necessarily need to pass anything else in there. So I don't need to pass in another object. So the book list, I don't have to pass in, just the title right now for the addition. And then when we process it, this is where it gets a little funkier. What we want to do is when we process the add page, or which is really what we're doing, we're going to call that. That's what we're going to call the functions. We're going to make a new, and remember we have books, right? We have our book structure, right? So we want to just make a new one. So I'm going to say that let new book, right? That's what's going to happen. A new book equal to the book model. That's what that is. And that's the first thing we're going to do. So we're going to create the structure that we need to make a new book. Okay, this is before anything else. Where we're going to say the following. So we're going to say that name is request.body, and then dot. You can see that there's a bunch of different things, but what we want is the name, right? Because we're going to get the name from the form that we're going to fill out. Okay. We're going to continue. And by the way, name, this is why name is not such a great idea to use name, because you probably should have used title or something else. But let's continue. So name, author, request.body.author. And next one would be published, request.body.publish. You're going to say, what is this request.publish? This is the body of the form. We don't have that form yet, but there's going to be form fields that we're going to get this information from. And then we're going to do description, request.body.description. And finally, price, which is request.body.price. So this way, what we've done is we formatted or created a brand new book object. That's what we've done, and we're calling it new book. All right, so the next part, we want to create, and that's what we want to use. We want to use the create method. So we're going to say that, hey, book, we're going to create. Notice that there is only one option for create. We can also look at insert, but there's only insert many. So for Mongoose, we only have create. And for create, we need the following. We need the object that we're going to be using. So new book. Okay. And we're going to pass in an error and the book itself, the book model, which is what we're going to do. Okay. This is how the creation method looks. And what we're going to do in here is we're going to check to see if there's an error. If error, then what I want to do is let's console log it. Okay, let's console log the error, and then we'll res end. If there's a problem, res end, what it does, it stops the server because we want to fix that problem. We don't want it ever to go by us. Otherwise, it can survive, or it's, kind of, we can lose it. And then once we've created the book, what we want to do is we want to refresh the book list. So immediately what we want to do a res, and this is new, a res.redirect. And a res redirect, what it does is we can specify where we want to go. So I can just say, I want to go to the book list, which kind of takes us back, you know, to where we want to go in the first place. This is going to refresh the book list after we've done an addition. So that's what the add looks like. Okay, so first we display the page. We don't have that page yet, and then after we get some input, we add a new object into the database with the same structure. You can see we're adding the same schema as we had before. Okay, next we want to do the get and post for the edit. This is a little trickier and it's a little bit longer, but let's display the edit page. So the edit page, we want to take the same kind of form that we had in the add page, but fill it up with data that we get from the table. So we click on the table and then we, you know, kind of get data in there. So how does this work? So again, first thing we want to do, we want to say that we'll set up an ID. So let ID equal to the request.params.id. So this is the ID of the actual object that we're clicking on. So if I click on an object in the table that I want to edit, and we're going to have some buttons on the table to do that, then I want to get that ID, and we're going to search for that ID in the database, and that's the one we're going to update. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to say the book, we're going to find by ID. Okay, find by ID. That's typically what we do. When we find by ID, we're going to look at the ID itself, followed by you know, some kind of error, and the book itself. We can call it whatever you want. Call it the new book object or something like that. Okay, that's kind of what it is. We're going to say that, you know, the current book object, book to edit, whatever you want to call it. So book to edit. Okay. I just made that up. It can be whatever you like. So again, the book, we're going to find in the book model, in the book list, if you will, or the book table, right? We want to find by ID the ID that we're looking at, and once we find that ID, we want to do something with it. So then we can say that if on error, right? If we have an error, not error 0, we just have an error, then what we want to do is we want to stop again. Console log the error, and we want to res end. Again, same idea. And this is very similar to what we have above. Else, if everything goes well and we're able to show the edit view, we want to fill up the edit view with the information. So res render. And we don't have this yet, but we're going to say, we're going to go into book, and then it's going to be edit. That's going to be the page that we're going to use. Followed by, we're going to have an object, and the object is going to be a little bit different. We're going to have a title, right, which is edit book. Just like we had up here, we had a title which was add book. Here we're going to edit book, and then followed by a book, which you're going to pass in the book to edit, whatever that it happens to be. So that's going to be the way we're going to render it. And it's pretty straightforward the way it looks. That is the way we display the information in the edit page, right? Now, processing the information in the edit page, again, it's very similar to what we did when the add, but there's some more complications. So again, just like we did before, we're going to say that let ID equals to request.params.id. So we're going to search for that particular ID again. We're going to say that updated book is going to be a new book. We're actually going to make a new one, which is a little bit contra to what we're thinking. And it goes along the same lines as what we had before. So just like we had all this, we're just going to grab all this information. You see, it's almost very similar. So name, author, published, and so on is all going to be the same stuff, except for the ID is also something we have to enter in. So let's do this. So name, author, publish, description, price. And it's all coming from the form body. Plus, we're going to look at ID, which is going to be ID. This is important because we're going to rewrite or overwrite our ID. We're going to keep the same ID when we rewrite the model. Okay? Okay, so this creates the book to be updated. We update the book with the new information, whatever the user entered, right? And then what we do is we update the model. So again, we go book.update. Now, update is old and it's deprecated. You can see that that is the case, right? If I hover over, it says that it's deprecated, right? Well, you can't really see it, but it says deprecated. So we don't want to use this version. We want to instead use update 1. Update 1. It's very similar to update, but it's the new version. So update 1, we're going to use the ID that we're getting, right? And then we want to pass in ID that we have up there. So that's what we're searching for. So we're searching for the ID, underscore ID, of the object that we want to update, just like we did in MongoDB on the command line. And then we're going to use this updated book. And we're also going to have an error object as a callback. And if there's an error object, then we can respond to the error. Somehow, if we can't add the book for some reason, let's say, I don't know, there's a Mongo's off or something. So in case of error, break glass. No. Console log it. And res end. Okay, same thing as bit. We can now think about this. When we're copying this over and over again, it almost makes me feel like I want to be able to call a function to do this. I'm not sure we'll gain much from it, but maybe some lines of code. Refresh the book list again. And this is the same thing that we did last time. We're going to do a res redirect. Just like when we added, we want to do the same thing when we're editing, right? Refresh the book list. So this is your edit, right? So we get the object, we update it, and then we redirect by updating the book list. Finally, we want to do the deletion. And the deletion is similar to what we did with the edit. Let ID is equal to request.params.id. We want to use the book model, book dot, and then remove. That's where I got the remove from. And we're going to search for that particular ID, right? Which is of type ID. So first, this is the searching area, the filter. And then we want to say, okay, once we found that, let's see what happens on error. Again, this can also be something where we can't remove it, can't delete it because of whatever reason. There's many reasons that this could happen. So if error, then we're going to log it again. And I can just literally copy this thing over here because it's the exact same. We're logging the error if there's a problem. Again, this is crying for some kind of refactoring, but my motto is to make it work and then refactor. And then we want to refresh the contact list. So once we delete it, we want to refresh the book lists like so. Okay? And that's the pattern. So this is the completed version of the route. Okay? And now what we want to do with all of this is we need views in order for us to do what we need to do. All right, so if one part is making the routes, the other part is actually having the add, and we also need the edit view. And I think I added that in. I said edit. There is no edit. Let's add that in. So new file, edit.js. So add and edit, almost identical, some slight differences. The list is also going to have to change to allow for some buttons as well. Okay, so let's get that done. And then again, like I said, this is going to be a longer one, and I do apologize for this one, but we need some more time because it's the best way to explain how things go. Let's do that. So again, I'm going back to views in a second. And what I want to look at first is the list that we did. So let's go back to our list. Here's our list. Not bad with what we did, but we want to add an add button at the beginning. All right, so let's type that in. So again, underneath the title, let's add, let's shift to HTML just for a second. HTML helps us because it scaffolds better with Emmet, right? So again, I want to say an anchor tag with the class of button and then button dash primary. That's a blue button. Where's what we're going to add in. And so that's how it is. But let's do some additional things. The href for this one is going to be /book list /add, right? That's what it looks like. So the book list is the outside, add is one step down. Our rule for this one, we're going to make this look like a button. Okay, that's what it's going to look like when we do the anchor tag. So role is equal to button. Okay. Inside the anchor tag, we're going to also add a I tag for this one. So the I tag has a class of FAS FA dash plus circle, just to make sure that it's a little faster. And what we want to do here is at the end, we want to put a space and then add a contact or a book. How about that? A book. And that's the last part of the anchor tag right there. So add a book. Okay, so that's what that does. And if we want to see what that looks like, let's go into Chrome here. And okay, this is important. So it says, could not find the include partials. Why? Because we restructured and we put the list inside of book. We want to go out to partials. So what we need to do is go up one to partials for all of this. That's what this means. Okay, so hopefully that'll make it so a lot of this will be just fine. All right, and let's try that again. So refresh, you can see now we have everything back, but we also have this little button. All right, and if I click the button, it's going to take us nowhere because we don't have any place to go yet, but we need this add button. I'm also going to need an edit column and a delete column on the right. So we're going to have to add more columns in here. Let's do that. So again, we're going to have two columns. So table header, and then we're going to have to assign some weight to that table header. And obviously we're going to make it so that it comes from our descriptions. We're going to move this down to 4. We're going to put a column of, and we're going to text center it. Okay, so text center, undo. I want to add one of these whole things here. Okay, and the same thing goes with the next one. And how about if I do it right and grab the whole thing, now part of the thing. There we go. All right, so let's make sure that all this adds up to 12 max. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and 4 is 12 for the description. That's where we need the most parts. And these parts are the edit and the delete columns. All right, we need to add those in down here, but we're going to have to space these out in the same way. So 2, 2, 1. This is going to go down to 4, and then it's going to go 1, 1, 1. And so let me put those columns in there as well. And I'm just going to put them in first. So I'm just going to do one of these, and we're going to change them to TDs in a second. So these change to TDs. Luckily, Visual Studio Code makes those changes nicely and easily. And then what I want to do is we want to put in those two buttons. So one of them is going to be a primary blue button that is going to, for the table, for the column, and this will be for the delete. So this is the edit and the delete we're going to put in there. The edit is going to be a anchor tag with a class of button dash primary. Okay, that's what that is. And what we want for the href is /book list /edit /, and this is where it's interesting, where we can put in our information. We can say that we want the book list, right? We want the book list count, so that particular object dot _ ID, all right, because it has an ID as well. And that's what we want in there for an href, right? If that makes any sense. So we're injecting the ID of the object as the thing that we want to edit, okay? And we're going to make this a primary button. We're also going to, at the end, put in some kind of I tag. So let's do that, just like we've done before. So we'll say I tag with the class of FAS, FA pencil, let's say. It's going to look nice. .alt, okay? And then we need a word for that, which would be edit. So it's going to say edit. All right, so this is an anchor tag, which looks like a button, just like before, and with a little pencil and the edit icon equivalent, okay? And again, we can hunt that down on Font Awesome if you like, but it's pretty simple. An anchor tag also for this one with a class of button danger. Button danger is a red button, okay? And button warning is a yellow button, for if you don't know that. So then that goes there. We're going to put the href, again, is slash, and we're deleting now. So it's book dash list slash delete slash, again, the same idea up here. I'm just going to grab this code right here so we don't have to type all that in, and it saves us on finger typing errors. All right, so we're looking at the ID, and then what we want to do is from a button class, we want an I tag of FAS, FA dash trash, so the trash bucket, dash alt, right? And then we're going to put in delete after this. All right, so there's a delete button. We may want to choose a smaller button. We'll see how that looks in our outline. We may also have to adjust some of these columns and stuff. That's just part of it. All right, so look, it looks like we're pretty good in terms of how everything is looking. Let's take a look here and see what our list looks like now when we refresh. Right? Not bad. I think these are not functional. Let's see how that looks. We missed the symbol, it looks like, for the pencil. Oh yeah, pencil should be pencil dash alt. And let's go back and refresh that. That might fix part of it, but you can see that these columns are really small. This scrunched in. We can probably do a little bit shorter for some of this stuff. But let's make it so that these buttons are smaller, and that'll help us out a little bit. Okay, so this will be like maybe button dash small is what you can go with. So, so button primary and then button dash small. You can do the same thing with the danger button. Button dash small. Again, it just adds that class, and then when we refresh, it makes it a little bit better. It kind of fits in there. Not really comfortable with how small it is. But again, it's just a first draft of what we're doing, right? Again, there's no functionality here for to press any of these things. They're not going anywhere because we don't have our edit or add page. The delete will work, but the delete will work too good. For example, if I click on delete Splinter of the Mind's Eye, like this, it's gone. Like gone. And you can't get it back. There's not even a warning that we're getting rid of it. And I'm not happy with that. I think there should be a little button that comes up or something that comes up that says, are you sure? There's also other sizes. So there's also small and I believe extra small. Let's see if extra small looks better. Or if that's even a thing. Nope. Let's take a look, get Bootstrap. Let's get different button sizes for that stuff. Again, so I'm going to go to documentation and we're going to go to components and we're going to go to buttons. So it tells us the examples and there's different button tags that you can use as examples, and now the sizes. So there's small buttons, large buttons, and that's it. I think those are the ones, so small and large. I think that's the smallest I could have got it going. I was probably right the first time. Button dash small. Yeah, it's just it's because of how many columns we have going on right now in terms of our description and everything else. It's pretty long. I'm tempted to take the description out. I think, it's nice if we add a new thing and we don't have the description in here. If we did that, it would look a little better. I think I'm just going to do that from a usability perspective. So again, I could make it larger too. So instead of limiting it, here's something we could do. To 10, I can make it 11, which would stretch things out just a touch. So we could do that, right? So it kind of stretches it out a bit more. A little better fitting. Author looks like it can drop down, and so do title. Title and author can probably go down a little bit. Year is looking right. Price is looking right. We maybe can add more space there. So let's see how that looks. So author and title can go down to 1, and we can put these things as larger. And I'm not sure how that will look, but let's try it. We're just changing the column sizes for the buttons, just that way they look a little bit better internally. Now it's too big, right? We can also specify percentages. That's also the other way to do it. Yeah, I think I like the other way more. Let's go and do. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with that. All right, so yeah, so we've got the delete. We know that it works, but now we need to do the edit and the add, and we need a page or pages to do that for us. So let's do that now. Let's get into the add page. That's the first one. Add and edit will be very similar to the add page. Just add a few more additional options. So let's get into that. So what does the add page look like? Well, we need a header, and we need a footer, and we need a navigation, and we need all that other stuff. So first thing is, let's get that stuff from this part. So I'm just gonna grab these two things, and for the add and for the edit, I'm gonna put those in, right? And the same thing goes to the bottom. So this part is where it changes. So on the bottom of the edit, here, and at the bottom of the add, put those in. Okay, so that's kind of the add and the edit. We have our scaffold starting off. And now what we want to do for the add is we want to start, let's do the add first. So this is the content for the add page. We may use this same structure for something else. We want a div. Let's make this a HTML document again, just to make it easier for us to edit. We want a div with a class of container. Inside that, we want a div with a class of row. Again, this is all Bootstrap stuff. And inside that, we want a div with a class of column medium. So look at that thing again. I think I like the offset. Let's go back to that. Okay, I want a class that's equal to this. Instead of offset medium 1, we're going to do an offset from the left 3, and then we'll have the width of maybe 6 in the middle. So let's kind of make it so that's centered in the middle of the screen. 3, and then we could put 4, but I think 3 is good. Let's see how that looks. So that's the first part. And then what I want is a title. So an H1. And we want to inject here the title, right? So title will be in there, like add, add book, right? Followed by a form, and this is where it becomes interesting. We could use the Bootstrap Forms. I'm going to type it in longhand here. The class of form, right? The method that we're going to use is going to be the post method. So we're going to get rid of action. And we're going to do instead, we're going to say method is equal to post. Okay. So that's the form itself. Inside the form, we're going to do one, and then we'll copy them. A div tag with a class of form-group, right? Inside that, we'll have a label as an example. And then next to the label, this is how you can do next to. So we have a label, and then after the label we have an input as an example, and the input is going to have a class of form-control. That's probably a good place to start. All right, so let's see how that looks. So form group, right, the div tag goes down here. Sorry, I just want to label it off here. There's the index, and we have we need an ID for this field, and the input is going to have an ID of name text field. I'm going to probably make that the ID. Okay, so I'm going to say form control, and then let's put in some stuff in here. So we're going to say ID is equal to name text field. Okay, that's the ID. Followed by a placeholder, which is going to say something like enter the name of the book or book title. Okay, is what it really should have been. We just made it that. We're also going to have a name is equal to name, and we're going to have that it's required. Required is going to make it so that it's not going to let us enter or go from one field to the next without it. The type is text. This is good. That's going to be that kind of keyboard and a mobile device. So we're looking pretty good in terms of our first form field. We're going to need 5 of these, okay, for adding. So copy that, and then we're going to go into the next one. One thing is we need to put in name text field for the label. The label itself, the other thing we have to put in here is the title. So book title. That's what it's going to say. Okay, book title. And for the label for the next one, so this is the author text field. Author text field, we're going to use that, and that's going to be the for value. The label is going to be author. Okay. Enter the book's author. Okay. And then the name is important. That's going to be author. The name is actually like the variable name. All right, so that's this part. So I think we've got most of everything in those 2 fields. Let's go to the next one. So author, and then the next one is going to be the published text field. Published text field is going to say, we're going to say the year, just to be different. Published text field. Enter the book's year of publication. Year of publication. That's what we care about. And we're going to make this published, which is going to correspond with the field inside the database. Okay, so that is the 3. Now let's go to description. Second last one. For the description, we may want to change it from an input to a text area. It'll allow us more freedom, and I'm going to look that up when it comes to that part. I'm going to come back to it in a second. But here, the ID for this text area is going to be the description. We'll say text area. And the description text area is going to be here. We're going to put in description. And placeholder enter brief description of the book, right? And let's take a look and see what text area allows. Text area is kind of funny. It's a little different, but here we'll put in the description. That's what it is. So this will be, instead of an input, it'll be a text area. Let's come back to that. So let's go look at what that looks like online for text area. So again, you see that there is quite a few things. Input groups of different kinds with text area. You can see what the text area looks like. input group text. Let me just see what that looks like. There's large. I just want to see what a good text area would look like. Buttons and drop downs, and just want to make sure that we're good. I'm pretty sure it looks like a text area the way we saw it up here with text area. And that'll be this part, text area, class form control, and that's all I really need to do. I don't think we need anything else. So let's just change it to text area. Now, I think there's a closure for this one. Text area, yeah, you close it off. It's not a self-closing tag, so that means it needs to be / text area. ID, class, form control, placeholder, we can do that in name, description. We can also specify the width and the height. I'm not going to do that here. See what, maybe it'll give us some automatic controls. All right, and the last one is a price. One thing to know is anytime we put anything from this, it becomes a string typically, but let's see how this looks. So input, this will be the price text field. So price text field here, price text field there. The type cannot be text. We want to make it so that it is a number. So we're going to enter in, we're going to limit the input for if it's a mobile device to a number, right? So numbers instead of just, so they can't put in something else that'll be better for us. All right, so price text field, enter the price of the book, or the book's price, and the name will be price. All right, so that pretty much does everything we need from a text area perspective. Now we need a couple of buttons. One that's a submit button. Let's do this. So again, button with a class of button primary. Okay, that's what that is. And the button itself is going to have an I tag with the class of FAS FA-edit. We're going to use that I tag. And we're going to have make it the submit button. So we're going to call it submit. Let's put that at the end just to make it so that it makes sense. Submit. We're just breaking it down over a couple of lines here. And the type for the button type is equal to submit, which is going to resonate with the form nicely. Okay, we need one more button. So we're going to make it an anchor tag this time. Makes it a little easier for us. So I'm going to say anchor tag button dash warning, and inside of that we want an I tag of FA with a class of FAS FA dash undo. I think that's pretty good. So that kind of looks like that. We're going to go to book list. That's what it's going to do. It's going to take us back to the book list. So it's going to teleport us back. With the warning tag, I think this is looking pretty good. And then we're going to call this the cancel button. Cool. That is our form for the ad page. Let's see how this looks. So we don't have to use it yet, but we should be able to get to it now. So going back to this, let's take a look at what that looks like. If I click the refresh and I click the ad page, it takes us to here. Yeah, so that's not really great. You see automatically that it's not wide enough for what we want. Definitely want to make this wider. Okay, so let's go back and fix that problem. That's all up here. Column, offset, and all that stuff. Medium 6. We should probably make this much longer. 8. And then we'll make that 2. That is the wrong... Well, that's why it's happening that way. It's interesting. What a foible. that is, this should actually be around everything else. All right, let's take that div tag. That's okay. That's fixable. So that's going to be all around the form. Div h1 in the form. Yes, it's going to be down here. And we'll balance this off later on. So that's going to be in here, and I can just go in here and just tab in. There we go. All right, let's try that now, and that's better. Yay. That's what it looks like. So now that's what the form is going to look like. Book title, enter the book title, enter the book's author, enter the year of publication, enter the description. We make it a text area. We get this thing that comes with HTML5. Pretty good. The book's price is pretty big, but you can see we can type in a value, so we can say something like whatever we want. We also have these funny controls that come up because we've said it's just the number buttons we can look. So we can actually put a value in and just space up, or we can and we can also go negative, which is something we don't have any validation on these forms. That's a different story. I'm going to click cancel, which should take us back to the book list. So that looks like it's working pretty good. The ad, we're not going to add yet. Now let's go back. After we've got the ad, that is a great template, if you will, for the edit. In fact, add and edit, like I told you, is something that we can probably do in one page altogether. However, we're not going to do that here just to keep it simple. It's going to be a little wasteful, but it's going to also allow us some leeway in terms of coding and everything else. Okay, so copy this. We're going to go back to edit, and then inside of our edit page, we're going to paste. So add and edit are identical at this point. But now is where we want to fill in the value. We don't have a value option here at all, but we want to fill in the value with the values that we're getting from our book that's coming inbound, right? So now remember what we did. I just wanted to say this. If we go to the route for this one, so if we go to the book route, and if we look to edit, we're going to pass in when we display. So this is our processing the edit page. This is displaying the edit page. And then when we display the edit page, we pass in the book to edit as a book. Single. Okay, so going back to edit, then what we want is the book.name, book.author, and so on. Okay? And that can be put after the name and before required. So we can say something that looks like this, just add a space. And we can say something like value is equal to, I'm just going to put these and frame it first. So we're going to put the value in here. Value is what it's going to actually be. So it's going to be book.name. Okay, so that's going to be the name. We're going to fill it with the book name, whatever that is. And just like we've done the value for that, we'll do the value for the other ones. So book author, book year or published as an example. And we'll do the same thing here in this area. We'll put in the last value here. So value is equal to book description, and then followed by book price. All right, so that's what that does. So it's identical. Like I said, it's literally the same code. The only thing we've added in is this value. So think about how we can, if we were going to make it one, what could we do? Well, we can actually pass in an empty book. That's the way we can do it. Pass in an empty book. This is just empty, right? So we just take the placeholder, which makes it easy to do. The only thing that's going to change is at the bottom, the submit button could say, instead of submit, it could say add or edit, you know, whatever. And that's it. That's really the changes for the edit page. Now we have the edit page, and let's take a look and see if that works. So we'll go back to this, refresh the page, and if I click edit, if we did everything right, then everything gets filled in. Nice? Okay, except for this. That didn't work somehow. So what happened? So book author, book published, book description. That didn't seem to like that at all, the book description. For the value, we're going to have to come back to this part here. So why is that the book description for value? So text area value might be something else. It also could mean the description could also be a keyword because it's highlighting in blue. Isn't that interesting? Just like name. Name is also typically a keyword, but and that's why we don't use it. But you can see book description that is unique, and that's not lighting up very nicely. I don't like the fact that that's happening. So how do we do that for text area? Now, if we were going to make this just transition it, so let's say we took it away from being a text area, made it an input again. Just want to show you this. So if I just take this away just for a sec, make it an input and refresh, works, right? We know that that's okay. So what is it for text area in terms of value? How do I modify the text area's value to add this in? So let's look that up. So we'll say text area value, JavaScript. I need to figure this out. And I just want to make sure that it is correct. Yeah, text area object value is equal to, and that looks correct. Let's do it with HTML, because that might be something that's slightly different. Text area tag value property. That's the document. That's the same kind of thing we looked at. So it's got a text property, and it says there's a string representing the contents of the text area. I wonder if it's the text property, not the other stuff. Text area has a name and ID is needed in reference for the name after the form. So that's the actual name of the variable. And what else does it have in terms of, yeah, see, this is the thing that I'm telling you. So from an attribute perspective, it has a name, placeholder, read-only, required, rows, wrap, but you notice it doesn't have the content is not here. So it's something else. What is it again? Rows and wrap. Yeah. That is something that is not something that I think we can use. That's why I told you the text area is a really weird thing always. But we have to do it. This is the direction of the text area. Number of columns that we can specify so we can see the text area, right? The name for the text area. And number of lines, how the text is going to wrap. So I think we can try a couple things. So we saw text is a thing. Text could be the thing, but that may not work in terms of setting of the default value for the text area. So sets, let's try that out. Set default value for text area. And I want to add it in with HTML. Name is awesome, and then default value. I guess that's what we're going to have to do, put it in there. That makes sense. That's silly, of course. So we're overthinking this thing. What we need to do is we're going to take this part here, and we're going to put that in there. Right? Because that, we don't have a value. We have an actual, one thing about the text area, it uses another node, which makes sense. So that's where it's going to go right in here. So let's see if that works. As we go back to this, we need to get rid of all this now. Refresh, and we should be good. Yeah, look at that. So, yeah, I'm not quite happy with the indent, but that's another story altogether. At least we get most of the data in here is what we've got for all this, right? We can see that. We can probably edit it. I wonder if we edit it like this, would it come out edited? Well, let's try it. We'll submit it, and we'll change the value here to something else. First of all, we'll add a period, and we'll say submit. And do we have a problem with that? So looks like we're good. We edit it again, and you can see that now. So that's a spacing issue in here, right, for the actual edit area. So that's something we have to figure that out. Let's update this at least. Let's make this so it's 1095. Let's see if this will update the record submit. Yeah, 1095. So that worked. It looks like the edit works. Let's add a new object. So add a new one. So we'll say, let's add that another one other than that book. One of my favorite books is Ringworld by Larry Niven. And again, I'm just going with the same time frame. So book title is Ringworld. Book author is Larry Niven. Year 1970. I don't know why the authors are the way they are. And let's do a plot. Let's do a couple of lines of plot. And we'll put that in there. Okay, so a couple of things in there. There we are, 2850 AD, and the price that we're going to look at, we're just going to make a random price again, like $21.95, and then submit and see if that worked. Okay, so somehow, oh, this is a problem. So we have to figure this out because it says between 21 and 22. Okay, let's make it $22, but we're going to have to fix this problem because we called it a text object. And let's do that. So then we can see it's 22. It kind of added this in. We need to modify this whole input to fix this problem, but you can see how it added it in nicely, right? Let's check and see what it looks like in our database. So if we go back to the database here, and you can see that we can do a find pretty. And now there it is, Ringworld, Larry Niven. We've got this area here, and it's 22. It's interesting how it did that. Because we limited, the number of the input that we put in here, right? So we're going to fix that later on. So that's not an important thing. For now, I think what I'm going to do instead is instead of making it a number, just to bypass this issue for now, for the number, when we add it in, so we say that the edit, instead of it being a number, it's going to be text, and save that. And the add, we're also going to make that text for now, so that we can edit. That's going to be bad, but we can fix that later. I want to find out how to do that later on. There we go. And that should allow us to update this thing and see what happens. So let's see if I say refresh, and I want to go edit, and I want to change this to 22:59 and press submit. It's 22:59, right? So it's pretty good. So that allows us to do what we need to do for now. Okay, and that looks not bad. I think it's pretty good in terms of our situation. So we've done it. We've got the full CRUD now: create, read, update, delete. It took a while, but you can see all the piece parts that were used to make this video so long. And let me talk about this again. Let's just a recap before we go and do the next video. So a couple things we had to do. We had to add new views, an add view and an edit view. We also moved the list view inside of a book folder just for organizational purposes. We did that, okay? In our roots folder, so if I look inside of our book, we had to add all the roots for both displaying the ad page itself, as well as processing the ad. And the same thing that was different with the displaying the edit. We wanted to pass the information from the book list into the edit page, and that's why this is searching for the ID of the object that we've clicked on, so that it can take that ID and put it. We can kind of search the database, find by that ID, and populate the edit page with that information. And then afterwards, we process the stuff that's inside the edit page by using the post request. We also have, we're able to delete a book. We deleted Splinter of the Mind's Eye book But one thing that we want to do in the next video is we want to check to see if that's okay. We want to ask the user, are you sure? And if they are sure, then that's great. If they're not sure, then we want to stop them from deleting, because deleting can be, a catastrophic, something that you can't undo. All right, so that's where we are right now, and we're going to stop the video here. In the next video, we're going to restructure our code a little bit, and what we're going to do is we're going to use that controllers folder by pulling out the logic from the root and decoupling it, so that way the controllers are separate from the roots. Okay, but for now, that's it, and I'll see you in the next video.